The city sleeps with heavy breath, like it has nothing left to prove. The streets are empty, wide and long, but still they know I'm passing through. A single light above the road stands like a quiet witness still. It doesn't ask me where I go, it only stays, it always will. I used to think I had to find a brighter place to call my own, but even in the darkest streets, a little light becomes a home. The street light knows I'm here in silence, even when I'm moving quiet distance. Every shadow cast never really lasts. I don't need to run from the shape of what I've done. Maybe being seen is just standing still enough to trust. My footsteps echo on the ground, like they're speaking back to me. Each sound is small, but still it feels like something trying to be free. The buildings watch without a face, yet somehow I don't feel alone. As if the night itself has learned to recognize my voice in stone. Maybe I was never meant to disappear into the dark, 'cause even lost reflections still belong to every single spark. Maybe every wandering step was not a sign I went astray, but just the world adjusting how it teaches me a better way. Maybe loneliness was never proof that I was out of place, but space enough for me to meet the version I had yet to face. Maybe peace is not a goal, but how I walk when no one sees. A quiet kind of understanding that I exist just as I please. Now the night feels less like distance, more like something softly recognizing. Every moving shape becomes a gentle wake. I don't need to hide from the silence in my life. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer through dark. The streetlight never tries to change me, it only glows and keeps me steady. Every passing night turns into soft light, and if tomorrow feels uncertain, I won't rush back to the day. 'Cause even in the quiet dark, I've learned to stay. So I'll keep walking, not to escape, but to become what I already am. A small light that never needs to explain. The mountain sleeps beneath the ground like it has nothing left to say. But deep inside, the silence hums with things it never threw away. The earth is warm but never loud, as if it knows to wait instead. Each quiet crack beneath the stones still holds the words it never said. I used to think that calm meant gone, that stillness meant the end of fire. But even silence has a core that slowly learns what it desires. The volcano learns to breathe learning how to hold the storm without becoming what destroys the very shape I was before. Now the mountain feels less like a prison, more like a heart that's still deciding rhythm. Every quiet shake teaches me to wait. I don't need to fight every shadow in my life. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer my fire. The volcano doesn't ask for freedom, it only breathes until it becomes one. Every silent death still protects the rest. And if tomorrow brings eruption, I won't fear what I might be, because even breaking open still means I am finally me. So I'll stay here, not to escape, but to become what I already am. A quiet fire that knows how to wait. The bridge is quiet in the mist, like it has heard 1,000 names. Each step that passes through its bones still carries traces of old flames. The river moves without concern for who arrives or who departs. It only learns to keep on flowing through every ending torn apart. I used to think that staying meant the only way to be enough, but even passing through the same can still be part of what is love. The bridge remembers every crossing, even the ones that felt like loss, and every fading trace still has its place. I don't need to hold every story I was told. Maybe life is just this way, meeting, leaving, stay. The wind repeats what no one hears, like conversations left behind. And every echo on the wood feels like a thought I couldn't find. The water carries broken light that bends and never stays the same, but somehow in its changing form it never once forgets my name. Maybe I was never meant to make someone or something stay, 'cause even love becomes more real when it is not asked to obey. Maybe every goodbye said was not the end I thought it was, but just a different way to show that something still remains. Because maybe distance is not lost, but space where meaning learns to grow. So what I thought had disappeared was only learning how to flow. And maybe I was always part of everything I had to leave, not separate from what was gone, but woven in what I believe. Now every step Bibles and goodbye. The clock is ticking softer now, like it forgot what speed should be. Each second falls without a sound, as if it learned to let things be. The hands just circle, not in haste. No need to chase the day ahead. It feels like time has finally stopped to listen more than what is said. I used to think I had to be the numbers running through my life, but even time begins to learn there's more to living than the fight. The clock doesn't rush anymore, it's not the way it was before. Every passing hour has a quieter power. I don't need to run from the moments I've become. Maybe peace is just this truth, letting time move through. The faded numbers on his face still carry stories no one reads, of every late and early night, of every hope and broken need. The pendulum just sways and sways, like it is breathing with the room. And somehow in its gentle pace, I feel my thoughts begin to bloom. Maybe I was never meant to chase a life that never wastes, 'cause even time can slow itself when it no longer has to race. Maybe every wasted hour was never wasted after all, the space where I was learning how to hear my quieter call. Maybe pressure was just noise that made me think I wasn't enough, but even silence has its voice and it is steady coming rough. And maybe growing up is not a race against what I might lose, but learning how to stand within the time I never got to choose. Every ticking sound feels like solid ground. I don't need to win every moment I'm living in. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer through time. The clock no longer feels like burden, it only moves and keeps me certain. Every passing day softens in its way. To breathe, and now I do. So I'll stay here, not to escape, but to become what I already am. A quiet moment that never runs away. The branch is quiet in the cold, like it has finished all its talk. Each empty space between the leaves feels like a thought it couldn't block. The wind arrives without a name and brushes through what still remains. The world is slowly turning pale, but nothing here is quite in vain. I used to think that holding on what's left behind. The last leaf knows the sky will take it, not as a loss but to remake it. Every letting go has its own glow. I don't need to stay where I'm not meant to decay. Maybe peace is just as truth, to fall and still be new. Doesn't ask for more, it simply breathes through what is gone. Each fallen piece becomes the ground where something softer carries on. The sunlight slips through broken lines like it was always meant to pass. And in that fragile touch of gold I find the calm I never had. Maybe I was never meant to stay unchanged against the time, 'cause even endings have a role in how new beginnings climb. Maybe every loss I felt was just the world adjusting shape, so I could learn that nothing leaves without becoming something great. Maybe letting go is not a breaking point, but open door, where everything I thought I lost becomes what I am looking for. And maybe falling isn't down, but just another way to move, a softer kind of understanding that I don't have to always prove. Now the sky feels less like distance, more like something quietly receiving. Every drifting leaf has a place to breathe. I don't need to fight every change inside my life. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer through fall. The tree doesn't beg the season, it only stands and keeps on being. Every empty branch still holds its chance. And if tomorrow strips me further, I won't fear what I've become, 'cause even letting go still means the story isn't done. So I'll stay here, not to escape, but to become what I already am. And leave that trust the wind to know the way. The dust is dancing in the light that slips through old forgotten pains. Each shelf is holding quiet worlds of joy, of loss, of joy again. The pages whisper when I pass, like they remember every hand that once believed in something more than what the moment could demand. I used to think that what was gone had disappeared without a trace, but even silence writes itself in corners time cannot erase. The library never forgets a story, even the ones that lost their glory. Every faded line still survives in time. I don't need to rewrite everything that shaped my life. Maybe healing is just this, turning pages with no fear. broken chair still holds its place, like it is waiting for return. 1,000 lives between these walls still teach me more than I can learn. The ink has bled into the years, but somehow meaning still remains, as if the past was never lost, just rearranged in different names. Maybe I was never meant to close the book and walk away, because even unfinished lines still find a way to stay. Maybe every story cracked was not a failure to survive, but just a different kind of truth that needed time to come alive. Maybe every chapter closed was only breathing for a while, so something new could emerge behind the dust and fragile smile. Maybe I was always part of every sentence left behind, now separate from what I read, but written somewhere in the lines. Now the silence feels like meaning, like the past is softly still speaking. Every word I find changes how I'm defined. I don't need to fix every memory that exists. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to hear myself. The library never demands completion, it only holds every contradiction. Every story breaks, but nothing truly fades. And if tomorrow brings new pages, I won't fear what I might see, 'cause even what I've never read is still a part of me. So I'll keep turning, not to escape, but to become what I already am. A story still quietly unfolding. The lighthouse stands upon the cliff, where restless waves meet open skies. It watches storms come and go by without demanding reasons why. The ocean crashes at its feet 1,000 times, 1,000 more. Yet every night the lantern glows just like it always did before. I used to think that helping meant I had to calm every rising tide, but even light cannot stop the storm, it only gives the dark a guide. The lighthouse never chases the sea, still it shines for all who need to see. Every passing wave learns it can be brave. I don't need to hold every story that unfolds. Maybe purpose is just this, standing firm and giving light. The gulls are circling in the wind, like questions drifting through my mind. Some answers never choose to land, yet somehow peace is still nearby. The clouds are heavy overhead, but they don't frighten the distant shore, because the darkest nights have taught what quiet faith is really for. Maybe I was never meant carry every burden home, because even stars above the sea can only shine where they belong. Maybe every storm I faced was teaching me a gentler strength, not how to conquer every wave, but how to stand through all their change. Maybe every fear I felt was just a shadow cast by doubt, and every time I stayed the course, a little more light made it out. And maybe hope is not a fire that burns away the coming rain. Maybe it's the lantern in the dark that keeps on glowing just the same. Now the horizon feels much wider, like every storm has made it clearer. Every distant light still survives the night. I don't need to know where every wandering ship will go. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer my heart. The lighthouse never asks for praise, it only shines through passing days. Every storm it sees leaves a deeper peace, and if tomorrow brings rough waters and ways I cannot understand, I'll trust that even in the darkness, a small light still can stand. So I'll keep shining, not to be seen, but to become what I was meant to be. Steady through the weather, patient through the years, a quiet light that never disappears. The mirror stands without a word. It doesn't judge the face I wear. It only shows what I've become. Through every loss I wasn't there. The light above is soft and still, like it's observing what I hide. And every crack along the glass feels like a version I denied. I used to think I had to be a better image than I am, but even broken reflections learn to understand where they began. The mirror doesn't lie, it waits for me to meet my heavier weight. Every truth I see is still part of me. I don't need to run from the person I've become. Maybe healing starts the day I stop looking away. My eyes look tired, but they stay, like they've survived more than I knew. And in that quiet, fragile gaze, I see a heart still breaking through. The silence between me and me feels louder than the outside world, but somehow in that honesty, a softer story starts to unfurl. Maybe I was never meant to only show a perfect side, 'cause even truth needs space to breathe when nothing has to run or hide. Maybe every flaw I see was never meant to disappear, but to remind me who I am when everything becomes too clear. Maybe every version lost was not erased but rearranged, so I can meet myself again without pretending I have changed. And maybe love begins the moment I stop asking to be new and finally accept the truth that I am both broken and true. Now the mirror feels less like a judgment, more like a place where I return to breathe in. Every honest crack still reflects me back. I don't need to become the one I've been all along. The river leaves the mountain's arms without a map beneath the sky. It doesn't know what waits ahead, still every bend becomes its guide. It carries branches, fallen leaves, reflections borrowed from the sun. Yet nothing lingers in its hands, it flows because that's what it's done. I used to think that moving on meant leaving every part of me, but every mile the river finds still carries where it used to be. The river never has to stay, it finds tomorrow in today. Every winding turn holds another lesson learned. I don't need to know every place this life will go. Maybe faith is simply this, trusting where the current leads. The stones beneath the moving water have never asked the stream to slow. They've learned that years of gentle touch can change what force can never mold. The willow leans above the bank, its branches dancing with the breeze. It doesn't fear the passing tide and knows that nothing truly leaves. Maybe I was never meant to hold each season in my hands, cause the river finds the sea by letting go of every land. Maybe every road that changed was only opening another view, so I could see that different paths can still remain completely true. Maybe every dream I lost became the water feeding new ones, not disappearing into silence, but becoming someone else's dawn. And maybe hope is like a river, it never argues with the stone. It simply keeps on finding ways until the impossible feels known. Now the river feels like quiet wisdom, teaching every shore without a sentence. Every passing wave finds another day. I don't need to fight every change that comes with life. Maybe I was always meant to grow beyond what I could see. The river never fears the ocean, it only welcomes every ending as a beginning. Every winding mile carries one more smile, and if tomorrow calls me farther than I've ever dared to roam, I'll trust that every gentle current is already leading home. So I'll keep flowing, not to outrun time, but to become someone a little kinder with every bend, every sunrise, and every sea still waiting beyond the horizon. The night is wide without a floor, just endless blue I can't define. A plane anchors through the silent dark, like it was written in the sky. The city fades beneath the clouds, like all my doubts I leave behind. And in this height I can't control, I somehow learned to feel alive. I used to think I had to know where every journey had to end, but even stars don't map their path, they simply move and still transcend. The sky keeps every flight inside it, even when I lose my guidance. Every drifting light still finds its height. I don't need a hope, every answer I was told. Maybe freedom is just this, letting go and trusting wind. The wings are shaking slightly now, but nothing falls apart in fear. The turbulence feels less like loss and more like life is always near. 1,000 miles beneath the glow are stories I will never see, but somehow all of them exist inside this quiet part of me. And maybe I was never meant to stay inside the same old ground, 'cause even breaking through the air is where my truest self is found. Maybe every unknown route was never there to make me lost, but just to teach me how to trust the things I cannot measure or exhaust. Maybe silence in the sky is just the world refusing noise, so I can hear the softer truth that lives beyond familiar choice. And maybe fear was only proof that I am moving into change. Not everything that disappears is something I should try to save. Now the horizon feels like breathing, not a limit but a gentle opening. Every passing cloud feels less like doubt. I don't need to know every place that I will go. Maybe I was always here, just learning how to steer through air. The sky doesn't ask for certainty, it only holds every journey. Every flight I take leaves a softer wake. And if tomorrow feels unsteady, I won't turn back to the ground, because even in the unknown sky I have already been found. So I'll keep going.